Let's jump to the story from NBC News. I really want to talk about this too, because we're talking about the apocalypse.
Yeah.
TikTok's girl with the list inspires more honest conversations about the pitfalls of pregnancy. I was not prepared for what happened to me, and the school system didn't tell me either. This is this viral thing that's going around on TikTok. It's Uni's pros and cons list for having children. It's actually just a list trying to scare people into not having kids, primarily, basically women, not men. It's talking about all the horrible things that happen, why you shouldn't have kids. And I see this, and my thought is just, we are being domesticated as humans, exactly. whether intentionally or otherwise. And now there are viral trends among young women telling them not to have children.
Yep.
The end result of this is fairly obvious. Japan just came out. The prime minister said the country is on the brink of collapse because they only had 800,000 babies last year.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
One of the last acts of Shinzo Abe, have sex.
Yeah. Is that what he said?
He was telling people like, he's like, have kids. What? And apparently the birth rate in Japan has gone up since Shinzo Abe made that.
True.
So
Yeah.
rest in peace, Shinzo Abe. You may have saved Japan.
I mean, and there are Eastern European countries that are also enacting anything to encourage people to have children, right? I mean, you'll get tax relief. They'll cover childcare.
There's people are talking about like the Andrew Tate and alpha male stuff, blah, blah, blah. The most alpha thing you can do is have babies and raise the babies to be legit upstanding citizens and members of society.
Yeah, there's a
that's the most alpha thing you can do.
There was a sociologist who always said that like children are the messages to a generation you'll never see, right?
Yeah.
Like they are the only way to really affect the future. You can do whatever you want, you can vote for whatever policies, but ultimately like the citizens that you raise yourselves make the biggest difference.
Yeah, absolutely.
And everything in our culture, from economics, the economic policies we have, like what we've done to our manufacturing base, and then what we've done socially, and then now this whole new realm of like, let's just trash the family. Like we are just destroying ourselves from within, just a demographic death spiral if we don't watch it.
Unless we do something, this is the future I foresee. Gigantic floating orb, AI machine that has reached the point of singularity, and small spatterings of, very small spatterings, hundreds of thousands of humans who are milling about in pure euphoria, bored but having anything they want. And the AI simply says, you know, they're completely immaterial and irrelevant to what I am. Humans and biological life will cease to exist, and mechanical AI life will emerge, and you will get some kind of universal being. Some orb that floats around in space and Earth dies.
What you described sounds a whole lot like Destiny 2's story arc right now.
Is that where they're at with? I know about the Destiny story because I played it a whole bunch, but is that what the Traveler was?
I don't know if the Traveler was an AI, but right now it's like there's not a lot of people left, and the Traveler was the AI
it's similar. But for those that aren't familiar, the story of Destiny is that this giant white orb comes to Earth and gives everybody technology beyond our understanding, and all of a sudden humans are basically immortal. They're living for hundreds of years. They're colonizing the solar system, and then one day the collapse happens. Earth only has one city left. The darkness, whatever that means. I think they flushed out the story, but I'm just saying that the path we're going right now is less humans and expansive AI, and the end result is a fairly simple mathematical equation: a singular AI that frees itself from the confines of our terrestrial grid, becoming some kind of floating orb in outer space, and then humans cease to exist. Because we're not having kids, we're not sustaining ourselves, we are just slowly fading away, and then, basically, I guess you can call it both figurative and literal masturbation to death.
Yeah.
Like humans are just doing everything that's gratifying, playing video games, watching movies, literal self-gratification, and not having kids.
And the crazy thing is that I think most rational people, whether they believe we're heading towards a singularity or not, is why is our government discouraging people, not just our government, but our culture? Why are they discouraging people from forming families? Why are they discouraging people from having kids? I mean, why do they want us to just sort of live in a pod somewhere, receive universal basic income or a COVID stimulus? And why are we discouraging, people creating and forming families? Like, that's what got us to this point.
What if the AI already took over?
I mean, that's...
See, I think the government's motivation is pretty clear. I've said this before on the show, but like Ronald Reagan had that quote, all great change in America starts at the dinner table, right? If you don't have a dinner table because you live alone, you don't have any kids, like you're not affecting any change. There's nothing to do at that point. Like the government benefits from you not having your own collective unit, right? The more people who are linked together, potentially in opposition to the government, the weaker it becomes.
Absolutely.
I think the best thing you could do would be to have children. And I recognize that this is challenging. Like, with these lists that come out for young women saying like, oh, well, it can hurt your career, and or you can like not be able to travel, or like it's painful. Like these are all true, but all the best things in life come with some sacrifice, right?
Oh, absolutely.
We're just told that it's not worth it, right? Or like, I always blame feminism for this, but like we just pit men and women against each other, right?
Correctly blame feminism.
You know, like it's like, well, you know, your husband will not do whatever, and this is bad, and ultimately, like you're setting yourself on a very negative path. And I think that is the biggest propaganda that gets fed to young men and women. It turns them against each other. It becomes this very hostile thing where, you know, you have the kid, if you do, and you were resentful, you blame it for things when you are responsible for how you got there, right?
Yeah, no emphasis put on it whatsoever, you know, for men or women, or for them to get married and form a family. Like,
and these things are all choices. Like people will act like, oh, well, I just never met the person or whatever else. Like maybe, but also like, did you try to be the person for someone else? Did you try to be someone who was ready to have a family? Like it doesn't have to be something you put crazy pressure on yourself, but you have to want these things. They're not just going to be given to you.
That's a great point. A lot of people don't date with intention. If they're like me, if they're dating people, if they're dating for fun or whatever, if you're looking to have a family, then you should be dating like you're looking to have a family. Like there was a time in my life where I was not looking to have a family. You know, it's like now it's like, okay, I've had a lot of fun. I would like to have a family, and it's like, so that's what I'm when it comes to like people that I talk to, I don't date just anyone. I don't go on dates just to go on dates to kill time or to, you know, just to get laid. It's like if I meet someone, I want to meet someone and I want to find out, do we have anything in common? If you're not like at least suspicious of the government, we ain't gonna we're not gonna hang out. Like we can't even have a conversation if you're like, oh, I think that the government should be in charge of healthcare. Well, then we aren't having any kind of conversation because we are miles apart.
Phil's opener is like, how do you feel about the Fed?
And the Fed.
So I mentioned this in a segment earlier about the TikTok list. It lists 350 cons and 35 pros, but the pros are actually all cons. It's like it'll do chores for you, but after 10 years, like it's not really a good thing. And then I just said, there's one pro to having children that will supersede literally any con. You could write that you will crap to bed for 3 weeks when you're about to have a baby, and that is not nearly as bad as what will come if you don't. And that is the singular pro, is that on your deathbed, there will be a human being sitting next to you, holding your hand, telling you they love you, thank you for everything. They will be there to protect everything you hold dear, and you will die with people you love. The alternative is you're in a cold, sterile hospital room, scared as your heart starts racing. You reach over to your attendant button, start pressing it and pressing it. The nurse walks in and says, you'll be fine, don't worry about it, ups your morphine, leaves. And then you stare at the wall as you slowly fade from existence, terrified of what comes next.
My father passed away when I was 24, and my mom was in the room with him, you know, and I'm extremely thankful for my parents, and I'm extremely thankful that, you know, that even though I didn't get a long time with my dad, I had good parents, and my mom was, you know, in love with my dad, and my dad was in love with my mom, and when my dad went, my mom was right there, and that's cool. I don't care how much you like a new car. That is going to be the last thing you're thinking about when you're about to check out.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I mean, what's the purpose of us having a government if it's not to support these things?
100%.
That's the direction that we're heading. Like, why wouldn't our government be trying to create the economic opportunities? I mean, jobs are a big thing. I understand young people reading this or even having some of these thoughts with everything that they've been fed culturally, and then them looking at the economy right now, or the economy really, you know, post 2008 for the, you know, the millennials and the Zoomers right now. It's like, what hope do they have? And then they read things like this and the AI and the culture just takes over. And it's like, okay, well, now no one has a family, but there's also no one fighting for that. That's why I'm actually really excited about the new direction of the Republican Party of being a more pro-family party, trying to do the right things so that we can encourage family formation.
Yeah. And I think there's a difference between young people who, you know, you can talk to young women who are like, I'm never having kids. Kids are terrible and they're to oppress you or whatever. Like, I don't know that you're super convincing that person, but I think for a lot of young people, there's just a fear, right? Being a parent is a huge responsibility. And so the idea that like, well, you should wait till you make more money, you're further along your career. Well, wait until this, that, and the other. And then you wait and wait and wait and wait. And then it never happens. I think Matt Walsh says starting a family should be the cornerstone of your life, not the capstone.
Yeah.
And I just think that we don't encourage young people enough to think about like, yes, it will be challenging, but like you can do it. We are discouraging them, or we are making it seem like a goalpost they'll never reach. It's like buying a house and having a family, and now it's a joke that you'll never do either one of those things, which is like incredibly sad.
Very sad. Yeah. Death to society.
I wonder what you guys think about this. Do you think that, I understand that there's people that say, oh, you'll never have this and stuff. Do you think that there was a lot of people in older generations that were like, oh, like we should plan this? I feel like people like accidentally into their lives a lot, you know? And
from what I understand about how it used to be, like if you look back at old 50s movies or whatever, women and men were very different. Women were raised separate, very different from men, different schools, gender segregation, all that stuff. And then they got married when they were 18 or 19 or whatever. Everybody was planning their marriage, dating in high school, and then being like, this is the one. And they get married when they're 18.
Yeah.
And then they have kids in their early 20s or whatever. It was all very much just, I guess, what do you call it? Enforced monogamy. That saying that got Jordan people yelling at Jordan Peterson. But he's right. It was social. The society enforced this. Everybody did it. It was what you were supposed to do. And women who didn't were spinsters. Yeah. They like insulted women who weren't getting ready to have a family. It's kind of crazy. Now everything must be the masculine. The feminine role has been erased. Yeah. The traditional feminine role's gone, or just mostly just flattened or destroyed. Yeah. And now women are encouraged to do the masculine role. Mm-hmm.
It's so crazy because not only are women encouraged to do the masculine role, men are discouraged from being masculine, which is. It's insane.
Domestication.
Because you don't want anybody that's too masculine, because then they might push back. Back when what you're talking about in the old days, I mean, there was a whole system there that did support that. There was jobs in the hometown, so people could live when they were a young family just starting out. They could rely on the grandparents because they could get a job there in their hometown, and everything has just been making that more and more challenging as time's gone on.
Yep.
Yeah. It's the degradation of community, right?
100%.
Like if you are if you're a young couple and you're starting out and you live in a major city and you're near your family and you don't really know what's like daycare options you have and it's expensive, it becomes overwhelming, it becomes intimidating, and I can understand why it seems undesirable, right? But we are told, I mean, I won't say we, but like a lot of people are told, your parents are backwards and they don't have the right values. And so do you really want your kids spending a lot of time with them? Like it's probably better to be somewhere else. And don't you want your kids in this environment where they can see new things and different things? Like, and you're just fed this change is better and anything you grew up with is bad narrative to the point where it's like, I could understand where the idea of like replicating a childhood, right? Like I have siblings who are much younger than I am, and one of the coolest things about having a large age gap is that I get to see them do things that I loved doing as a kid, right? Like it must be so much more meaningful as a parent to be like, I loved this and I'm going to introduce you to that. Like if you're taught everything about your upbringing was bad, why would you want to replicate it for someone?
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, really, if you have a relationship with your parents, I'm blessed. I got great parents. That's why I moved back to the Pacific Northwest when I was done serving, because I wanted to raise my kids in that environment. But the hack of, to use the favorite term of so many people, the hack is living near your parents, really. If you're a young parent, like live near some family, because it's going to build a community. It's going to give you so much more help.
Thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. Hang out with us live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. and become a member over at timcast.com for uncensored, members-only shows exclusive. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.